Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at the novel, The Quest for Tanelorn, which was written by Michael Moorcock. It's in the Eternal Champion series, where most of his works are set, including even in science fiction and his fantasy and the science fantasy world of Dorian Hawkmoon too. This is actually in the Hawkmoon series. It's the final of 7 books. The first book series is 4 books, one more than a trilogy. And this is the Castle Brass trilogy that follows up with what's happening. I think that the first 4 books are a good entrance place for a lot of people to start with the Eternal Champion, figure out what's happening. There isn't a lot of Eternal Champion stuff that's happening there that you would find out about from other things and so forth. But the second trilogy is different. Now you're having other Eternal Champions that you mentioned. He's called the Eternal Champion. He's going to other places, right? He has companions and so forth. So now he's more of the Eternal Champions that mix with other things. So basically, what is the Eternal Champion? Well, this is a series of multiple characters and multiple places and multiple planes of existence in the multiverse, which is a term that's created by Michael Moorcock, and this is the first multiverse saga. And there are battles between law and of on one side and chaos on the other. And the Eternal Champion is fighting for balance and law against the evils of chaos. And so that is sort of the central conflict of what's happening. And the Eternal Champion appears on every plane and so forth of existence and at different times, and fights that fight for the good fight. So and in desperate times, and that's what we've been taking a look at for you folks. And that's Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion series. It's the first multiversal saga. It's the first multiverse saga, and so forth. So that's all created here. So if you have that in your stuff, in your modern stuff, then this is where it's coming from. This is a suitable ending, actually, for the entire series for you folks. The last chapter of this trilogy for you folks. It has multiple champions in it. It has multiple things that are happening in it. The Quest for Tanelorn, which is a city that's on every plane of existence, although it's a little different on each plane, but it's one of the constants of the universe, multiverse rather, on all these various planes of existence. And it's a key thing, so they're looking for it. Basically, what's happening to open up things, and again, I keep my review spoiler free. But what's happening is that Dorian Hawkmoon is back in Castle Brass in the Camargue, which is controlled by his friend and stepfather, Count Brass. And then he is finding he's searching for his lost children. His children disappeared when some time was changed in a previous book in the series for you folks, and so he's going to start setting out. Him and his wife Ysilda are going to start setting out for Londra, which is the capital of the formerly bad empire of Grand Brett, which is cool folks, which is now controlled by Rana, one of their people that a little less not. She's been turning it to a good thing. Lots of people have been moving there, lots of smart people and scientists and so forth. And this is a science fantasy world. It's not a traditional fantasy world. So there are scientists there rather than wizards. That is true to form. So they're hoping that they can tell them where their kids are. And then Orlin Frank, servant of the Runestaff, who was thought dead in the first 4 books, arrives at Castle Brass, and he tells them that the children are at Tanelorn. So now they're going to quest for Tanelorn for you folks. This book is 155 pages long. It starts on page 7, so it's 148 pages long. I was going to knock out 50 pages a day and knock it out in 3 days. I knocked out the first. It's divided into 3 books. The first book ends on page 48. So I knocked out the first book on page 48, and I decided to continue to read, and I read the first chapter of book 2, and then I finished it on page 60. So I actually read a little more than 50 pages for you folks, and then I finished the second book on day 2. Day 1 was about an hour and 20 minutes. Day 2 was about an hour and 10 minutes, knocking out and finished book 2 of the book, and then book 3 I finished on day 3 last night, reading it for a second time, and that one was about 50 minutes. So all told was about 3 hours and 30 minutes or so, roughly. So you can easily knock it out one day or one sitting on an airplane and so forth. It's very fast, and that's one of the benefits of these horror books that are decades old, and they're typically not that long, right? They're not like these hundreds and hundreds of pages books that if you just read 1 hour a day, it'd take like a month to read them, right? Michael Moorcock is a fast writer too. So I enjoy him. He used to be one of my favorite authors, by the way. He was my first favorite author after R.A. Salvatore. I discovered him in high school, and I did a lot of deep dives into his stuff in high school and then college. And I picked up a lot of his things and so forth. And I picked up this trilogy later on after I went back to his stuff, not initially when I was obsessed with Michael Moorcock for about 8 years or so, until H.P. Lovecraft became my favorite author later on in college. And then he was my favorite author for a while for you folks. And he's definitely very influential in modern fantasy and science fiction. He has a lot of traditions and created a lot of things like the Sword Stormbringer, the Eternal Champion that wielded it, Elric, who are also in book 3, which is a nice coda to the series. And then, so if you're gonna read this series, this trilogy is a nice place to stop, and then finish things up, right, in a nice and suitable place for you folks. All right, so there you are. That is my thoughts on the quest for Tanelorn. As a reminder, this champion, see how I'm in Eternal Champion mind now? This channel's thing, the worst thing about new books, is a quote by a French philosopher, Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about new books was that they kept us from reading the old ones. So a book that was written decades ago, like I said earlier, is definitely a key part of this that we've often forgotten about for you folks. I'm going to be giving this probably an 8, probably just an 8 out of 10. It's fun stuff. He's definitely influential. He's beloved. For example, in 1979, in a Dungeon Master's Guide by co-creator of Dungeons & Dragons, Gary Gygax in Appendix N, he lists this as one of the key influences on where he got all of his ideas from the game. For example, the Law versus Chaos that I mentioned first became very, very strong in fantasy for a long time, for decades. And people like Roger Zelazny's Chronicles of Amber would also have a Law versus Chaos central conflict too, and so forth. And we've looked at Louise Cooper, who also has a Law versus Chaos central conflict in the first edition of Dungeons & Dragons before it became Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Was just Law versus Chaos 2 is its central dynamic, and it was only a couple of years later when they changed up editions and made it advanced that they added on top of the Law versus Chaos the good versus evil dynamics too for you folks. And for example, there's a quote in here that says that law isn't always good and chaos isn't always evil, right? And these are key parts of these. Although in this universe there's certain tendencies, I think there are tendencies towards that, right? Particularly on chaotic planes that are controlled by chaos. Ian Corum's 15 books, 3-book trilogy that started things off for you folks. That's just as one example. But there you are. I'll go ahead and leave it to you. If you like this, what do you think about it? Would you like to talk about the spoilers or the ending? Did you agree or disagree by 8 out of 10? So let's talk about it. If you enjoyed this, why not hit that subscribe button, because there's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I just want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling. So I appreciate it. Thanks again. Have a great day.